Hi friends. In the Gospel of John, chapter 10, verse 10, Jesus says that he came that we may have life and have life in all its fullness. Now, depending on the translation that you work with, it might say something like, I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. And this idea of an abundance of life, a fullness of life, what does this mean? What is this? Because when you go around and you talk to some Christians seem to think that this idea of abundance of life and fullness of life is actually getting to a destination in life where you have more than enough of everything, where you drive the car you want to drive, live in the house you want to live in, have all the material things you want, have a successful business. This is the idea that gets promoted by a lot of churches these days, is that in order to be a Christian who has great faith and who has received the abundance and the favor of God means that you are financially and materialistically successful and wealthy. But I don't think that that's what Jesus had in mind at all when he said this. In fact, if I think about fullness of life and abundance of life, in my opinion, it's got a lot more to do with life experience. So, a full life, an abundant life, is a life that experiences both the highs of life, the good things, the wonderful successes, the really beautiful things in life, as well as the lows. So, think of it in terms of these parameters that you live within. On the one hand, you might be successful and you might actually get to that point in life where you do have a successful business and you might have all the material benefits that come with that. And you might be very blessed in that regard. But at the other end of the spectrum, you might experience great loss in your life. You might lose your business. You might be bankrupt. You might lose a loved one in a car accident, or you might lose a child. You might experience great pain and hardship along the way on the one end of the spectrum. And a fullness of life to me would be living within these parameters to the actual extremes. So the wider those parameters are, the fuller the life is that you're leading. And if you think about it, I mean, life, if I say to you life is beautiful, I really mean that sentiment. I mean, I think that life is a beautiful thing to live, and it's a beautiful thing to experience, and it's a wonderful gift from God that we've been given to experience this. But on the one end of the spectrum, the real lows of life, the really bad and hard things that happen to us and the things we have to endure and make it through, these are the things that actually amplify the joy and happiness and jubilation and success of the good things in life. So without experiencing the real bad, we have no real regard or real respect for the very good things in life. And if we were to only experience the good in life, then it would become commonplace, and we would expect that, that's the way life is, and there just wouldn't be anything else to it. But the fact that we can experience the lows make the highs even higher. And the fact that we can experience the highs help to amplify the pain of the lows. The advantage, I suppose, of life in all its fullness and life in all its abundance and being someone who follows Jesus is that when you experience those highs and you're with Jesus, you don't take them for granted. And when you experience those lows and you are with Jesus, you don't give up. And so Jesus becomes this common denominator in both the good and the bad that actually brings about balance to life and becomes a common denominator of enjoyment in life in all its abundance and all its fullness. So maybe we should take a minute today to just consider our own lives and consider, what do we think life in all its abundance is? What do we think an abundant, full life is to us? And how can we expand those parameters, those boundaries, wide enough to say that we are living the most abundant and the most full life? Well, one of the things we can do is we can start embracing everything in our lives. We don't have to accept it. We don't have to say this is the way it's going to be. But when things are going bad, maybe we can embrace it and say this is part of the journey. This is part of the expansion of these parameters. Yes, I have to endure it. Yes, I have to go through it. But you know what? I will make it through, and life will get better. And then on the other end of the spectrum, when we're experiencing those highs, if you're in that place right now, you could maybe sit down and say, perhaps this is something I shouldn't take for granted, because maybe this won't be here forever. Maybe I could lose this tomorrow. And then what? What would I have left? And when you consider all these things, consider also the most important part of this, and that is, where is Jesus in all of this for you? So may you have an abundant and fulfilling life. May you come to realize that this abundance and this fullness of life is living broadly within these parameters. And may you come to acknowledge that everything that you experience in your life, whether it is good or whether it is bad, all makes up the picture of this fullness, this abundance that God so much wants you to enjoy and experience in your time here on earth. And may you also come to know that Jesus is the common denominator within all of these experiences that actually makes this all worthwhile. Have a blessed day further. Amen.